And
Are you gonna do the intro? Or
yeah, no, we're live here. So yeah, maybe you want to keep Mixer up so that we can see what
Mhm.
the people are seeing. So we're here on the MakeCode for Microbit Beta 2020 Deep Dive. And today we're going to be looking at MakeCode Python, kind of one of the big new feature. And I'm here with Daryl. Daryl Zuniga is one of the another MakeCode team member. Hi, Daryl.
hey, Belly, how's it going?
Doing great, although I forgot to load up on coffee for this show. Yeah, so we're gonna do MakeCode Python. We're here on Mixer, and you'll probably watch this on YouTube later on. Make sure you follow our channel or subscribe, that you get notified of all the good stuff that's coming your way this summer in Microbit. And today we're gonna look at Python. Right. So
Yeah.
we're in the makecode.microbit.org/beta, and that's where all the new stuff is right now. So you can try it out as well.
Mhm.
And yeah,
All
Daryl,
right.
what's going on?
So I thought I would show kind of Python and kind of how you get to Python. So one way is, so we have all these tutorials you're probably familiar with on the homepage. And all these tutorials now also have a Python option. So you can go to the tutorial on blocks, Python and JavaScript. I think the JavaScript option is also new for this release.
You want to
Um,
take control of the? You have control of the browser?
I
Do
think I
that.
do. Do
Oh,
you
okay.
see it that way?
Try it. See if we got that going. Oops, I covered your face. Little technical.
Technical glitches.
Oh, hold on. No. Oh, you are sharing.
Yes, I'm sharing.
No, no, no. You have to take. You have to take my machine.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sharing with my machine. Take mine.
Oh, how do I even do that?
Am I sharing? I think I'm sharing. No, hold on.
Stay with us, folks. We'll figure
Stay
this
with
out.
us. We're sharing. There we go. Daryl's back. And now I can give you control.
Okay.
I sure can. There you go. Woo!
Okay, so I
Hey!
cursor now. I can scroll. Okay, this is going to be interesting. This is actually the first time I've taken control of someone's screen. Okay, so like I was saying, let's get into Python. So these tutorials here all have a Python option, and today I'm going to do the micro chat tutorial really quick. So if you click, the Python card here, then you see the familiar tutorial interface, except now everything that you're being told to do, you're being told to do in Python. So the first thing it wants us to do is on a button pressed, you can, we're going to run some code. There's at least 3 ways you can do this. So you could type out exactly what it's showing, but because we're in this kind of fancy editor here, you can also use a feature called autocomplete. So if I say input dot on button pressed, or just input dot, you can see these are all of the functions that are part of the kind of input namespace is what we call it. So this is a helpful way. It can save a lot of time when you're coding, big programs or even small programs. So if I hit enter here, what it's done for me is it's filled in kind of the basics of what I need for a button pressed event. And that is on button pressed, on a pressed, it's gonna call this function, and this function here does nothing right now. That's what pass means in Python. So as soon as you get into text coding, either JavaScript or Python, you're going to see a lot more functions around, and functions are really powerful, and there's something to lean into. So yeah, we'll see plenty of these. So let's go into the next
Yeah,
step.
and just
Uh-huh.
to add, this is going to be a common pattern, and you'll see in MakeCode.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly different from what you're going to see in Microbit, which is you're going to register functions for the event handlers, right? So you'll
Mm-hmm.
often see, defining a function and then registering
Mm-hmm.
it for a particular event. In this case, when A is being pressed, and
Yeah.
that's going to be the
Yeah.
pattern all over the place.
And this is
You're going to see that.
one difference between kind of how the MicroPython stuff on the Microbit site works versus MakeCode Python is MakeCode is event-based, and that's true in blocks, that's true in JavaScript, and that's true in Python. And so really all of the code that you write runs on events. And like Pelly was saying, the way you do that in Python or JavaScript is you register. It's called registering an event handler, which is just a lot of scary jargon for saying, this bit of code here runs on button pressed. Okay, so we can do, use our fancy autocomplete to say send string. So I just type in a little bit of what I need, and it'll autocomplete the rest, and I fill in the smiley face. And now in the simulator, if I hit A, nothing happens yet, but you can see we have this little indication here that something's happening over the radio, which you're probably familiar with if you've done radio stuff before. Okay.
Yeah, so we've got a question in the chat about what does pass mean?
Oh, pass just means do nothing. So if I didn't have this pass here, it would be an error because Python is expecting sort of an indentation. So the way Python functions work is that the indented code below the function is run. And so it expects some code to be there. And if you have nothing to do, then you need to write pass. And if you don't write pass, then it's going to think what it thinks is happening here is that that you meant to indent this. And so it's going to give you an error saying you probably meant to indent that. But what we actually meant to do is...
It's perfectly safe to delete as soon as you have anything to put in the function. You can just
exactly.
Get rid
so
of it.
You'll actually see, so if we do the autocomplete on input on button pressed, the pass is highlighted, and that's because it's expecting us to sort of type over it right away. So let me see, I'm going to do the send string thing again and fix my indentation. So one thing to be careful with in Python is the indentation.
Sounds like code. Okay, keep going, Daryl.
Yeah. So on a button press, we send a string, and then the next thing we want to do is radio.on receive string. Oh, actually, instead of auto-completing this one, let me show you another way to get events out there, which is the toolbox that you see in blocks is now transformed when you're working in text languages, JavaScript and Python. And we don't have blocks any longer, but they're sort of reminiscent of blocks. And what they are is these are descriptions of certain functions, and there's sort of an explanation there. And when you hover over one of them, you get these handles here that you can grab, and actually you can grab anywhere on the block and drag it out. Anyway, so when you drag that out, a little bit of starter code comes with it. And this is just another way to discover what is available and to speed up your coding. So on receive string, we want to go to the next step, and we're going to show the string. So we're going to say basic dot show string. And the string we want to show here.
How much should I miss?
Not much. You can see from the code. I showed the snippet dragging out, which is pretty handy. Then we show received string. Did I have a type? Yes, received string.
Yeah. You talked about typos already, I think.
I have not.
That.
Yeah, so here I left out a D.
We call it Mr. Squiggle in Python, and it shows up. Well, it doesn't really exist in blocks, but you're going to see these when you're doing text-based coding.
Yeah.
The red squiggles means, you've got a typo.
Yes. Likely a typo. Sometimes it's other types of errors, but most of the time a typo. And so you'll see this red squiggly. And actually, I won't steal Hristo's thunder, but eventually we'll explain kind of what's going on down here. There's actually this little problems window that helps you identify kind of what's going on. And if you hover over the red squiggle, it'll give you, it'll let you know what the error is. So receive string is not defined. So receive string isn't mentioned anywhere, and it's received string. And
so sometimes a message can be a bit cryptic. In that case, just ignore the message and try to figure out what can happen. Also, when you're
Yeah.
typing, and if you're typing slow, you'll see these squiggles show up, but just
Hmm.
finish typing what you want to type before you worry
Yeah.
about them. Right?
Yeah. So, right. What Pelly's saying is, as you're typing this out, you're getting errors, and that's okay because you're in the middle of typing, and MakeCode doesn't know whether or not you're actually stopped there or if you're just in the middle of typing. And so, yeah, feel free to ignore the errors as you're typing. Okay, anyway, so now I think our program is basically done. Let's see what the tutorial expects. Yeah, so now if I hit A here, I
You
have
have
to
to
hit it
hit A
again.
twice.
Yes, so it's sending the smiley across that way, and if I hit A here, it's sending a smiley across this other way. And I think there's going to be one last step. Well, it's having us download, which I'm not going to do over the stream. And the other thing it wants us to do is set this radio group, which if you've used the radio before, this is important to make sure that you isolate which microbits are talking to each other. If you don't set this group, then every microbit will talk to every other microbit. Or is it based on the program?
Yeah, it's based on the program. So you'll
Okay.
talk to exactly the same program, but
Hmm.
likely that if you're working with someone, they did a slight, tiny little difference, and
Yeah.
then it doesn't work. So it's way
Yeah.
more stable to just assign a group
Yes. And
to
a
your
group
program.
group is like an ID, or it's like,
Like,
hypothetically, if a teacher were to break you into little clusters, each one of those would
yeah.
have a different group number. Um, okay, great. So here's a simple little Python program. And now let's show off some of the other features going on here. So one is that, like we have with JavaScript, you can switch back and forth between blocks and Python. And so this code is exactly what we wrote in Python, but just shown in blocks format. And I can even, change it around and go back to Python. And so we have this two-way transitions that you can do. And it might change your code a little bit as it's converting it back and forth because it doesn't know exactly how you wanted things spaced out or whatever. But it's the same code in essence. And furthermore, you can go between Python and JavaScript. So this can be a really great way. Like, let's say you know Python and you want to learn JavaScript, you can just write some Python and then switch to JavaScript and see what that looks like, and vice versa as well. And the main scenario we see is blocks back and forth between Python. Like let's say you plotting an LED. And you're like, well, how do I do that in Python? You go switch over to Python, and maybe it's not, plotting LEDs is pretty simple. Maybe it's concepts more like loops. You're like, well, I can drag out a loop in blocks. Okay, how the heck do I write loops in Python? So you go ahead and you drag out a loop in blocks, and you switch over to Python. And now you can see here, this is what that loop looks like in Python. So this
And
is,
something to note is that there's this little line here on the left. This will help you with indentation. So if you drag another loop, for example, I go in and put another loop, you see you have two lines, and you can use that, kind of emphasize that you've got the Python scoping going on, and it can help you with your figure out whether you're missing some of those
yeah,
um, things. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so some other neat features kind of working in text languages. For one, as you hover over things, you'll get lots of help. So when you hover over radio.setGroup, it's telling you what this function does. If you hover over plot, it's telling you what this does. And it's telling you the inputs here. And if you've used Python before, you might not know this syntax. This is called type hints. You don't need to worry about too much, but it can be useful for learning if you're like, well, does this take in a number or a string? And it'll tell you here kind of what it takes in. And yeah, so I was thinking maybe we could just write some Python code that's maybe a little bit more advanced than you'd usually write in blocks, and kind of work from there.
Oh yeah, so one of our users asking what's the name of this Python tutorial, and I think this is
This one was
microchat.
MicroChat. Yeah, MicroChat.
Yeah.
It's the
So
last tutorial. Yeah.
we've kind of diverged a bit.
Yeah. This is all the MicroChat, and then
Yeah.
this is just me doing loops and stuff.
But this is a deep dive. So what's really interesting here is that the Python in MakeCode is going to be it's going to leverage the same APIs, just like in the past. MakeCode would translate the blocks into JavaScript, this special JavaScript we have that compiles down to microcontroller code.
Mm-hmm.
This is the same happening here with Python. It's going to take a Python syntax, but still compile it and optimize it to be able to run on the microbit
Yeah.
here. So you will see that there will be some limitation there. That means some features that you would expect to work in Python 3 will not work, or in general, you will not be able to. It's unlikely that you'll be able to just import a ton of Python package as is.
Yeah.
There's no concept of importing Python package as is.
Mm-hmm.
They just get imported automatically here. So it is a flavor of Python. We call it MakeCode Python that is optimized for MakeCode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some of the reasons why it's different than like the MicroPython that can be used with the microbit sometimes is so all of these APIs that we call them, or all these blocks that you would normally use in blocks or JavaScript, we wanted those to translate one-to-one over to Python. We wanted them to be the same. We didn't want to have a different set of APIs for Python. And so because they're the same in all three MakeCode languages, it's sort of standardized within MakeCode. But then they're slightly different than what you'll see in MicroPython for microbit. You can do basically the same things in each one. But yeah, there are some differences. And actually, so a little bit counter to what Pelly was saying is that there are some things that you can just copy paste, from the web into Python. So actually, if I look up Fibonacci in Python, and let's see, I think it was here or something.
So if you have purely algorithmic Python code, that is not specific to an environment, like you're not trying to pull in an AI.
Mm-hmm.
Please don't give me updates on this page.
I won't. Everyone wants updates. So here's a bit of Python code that I found, and I'm just gonna copy that over. And this you can just copy paste in. Oops. Paste.
There's no paste.
Oh, because I'm on a Mac, so it's actually, I don't think I can copy paste over here. Well, you'll have to trust me that.
Hold on.
Okay,
Yeah. I'm here to help. Let's go. There we go.
Okay. Nice.
Oh, there's a def.
It's just the indentation is slightly off. So this is one thing you'll notice as you copy paste Python code, kind of in general, but also in MakeCode, is that you have to be careful with the indentation. So we don't need a print here. So this is the non-recursive form of Fibonacci, but if we call basic.show number, oops, and we say Fibonacci of 3, then did I spell that right?
Let's look at the errors.
Yeah.
Got our trusty function, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
You're not returning anything.
Yeah.
Because this used to print.
Oh, this used to print. Yeah, I need the recursive form. So I use Google to find this.
You could just return series, right?
I think series isn't defined.
num1.
So So actually what I want to do here, I'm going to just write the recursive form because I know what the recursive form is. So
How about
if,
we delete the top so we get more space in this?
sure, hang on. Let's do that.
Of the radio code.
There we go. Radio code's gone. Okay, so I think it's if num is less than or equal to 1, then you return 1, or is it 0? I think it's 1. Else, you
Every morning when I wake up, I rewrite a little Fibonacci.
I'm gonna
you
shorten
want to
this
return fib. You want to return it.
Oh yes, return fib of num -1. Is it plus? I think it's man. Yeah, I really should remember this.
Just call it fib, maybe. Some fib.
Fib. Oops.
Oops.
Undo. Oh yeah, and of
this
course,
is
undo,
the beta.
redo
So
work.
there's a few things we're gonna want to iron out here.
Nice. Okay.
Oh
I
yeah,
think this is
3 of
Fibonacci.
3.
Let me check my reference real quick. Yeah, -1 and -2. You add them together. Yes.
The one great thing that's coming in Python 2 is the debugger. So we've shown the debugger for blocks, but actually it also works for Python. That's kind of one of the benefit of using the compile tool chain. So let's maybe debug this fib.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's not 1; it's n here. I guess I don't know that that's gonna matter. Oh, num. Num. See, the helpful error lets you know when you're off. Okay, so let's say I want to debug this. So there's this little bug symbol, and when you click on it, you go into the debugger mode. And there's a number of neat things here. So for one, if I click this this little snail, what's going to happen is it's going to play my code, but it's going to go very slowly through my code. So you can see it's highlighting what it's running at each moment. And let's do that again so we can sort of follow. So it's going into this loop, and then it's plotting, and then it's going back to the outer loop, and then plotting, outer loop, plotting. And you can see them kind of slowly showing up on the screen there. And now it's running through Fibonacci, and you can actually see the values of Fibonacci when
yeah, we've got a question in the chat about memory consumption. Yeah, so if you do recursive functions, you're gonna start paying a price on every time you go deeper to store the stack. In particular, we don't do telco optimization here, so yeah, you'll run out of memory. It's probably a better idea to do the non-recursive Fibonacci. However, for
small values,
program like this,
totally
it should work.
fine.
I mean, we could try it out. I've got a microbit here, and we can download it. Okay.
If you've
I'm gonna pair my device and just should download it. And let's go. Downloading, can see that. Got a little Fibonacci going on. The first flash, so it takes a little bit. And 2! Woohoo!
Nice.
It works.
Should we push it? How much do you think your microbit can handle? 30?
Oh yeah. Yeah, because there's not much going on. We don't have many events being so forth. But yeah, I mean, you're still running on the microbit, so you'll run out of space eventually. Let's go back to our debugging session. I kind of hijacked.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so the slow-mo thing is very helpful to sort of figure out what your program's doing. But we also have something called breakpoints. Oh, actually, one more thing before I move on past the slow-mo. So as the slow-mo is going, you'll see there's this variables area here, and it's showing you the value of your variable. So index, you notice it has been increasing as you've been going through the loop. And as we start going through Fibonacci, you can see the different values of num being used here. So this can be quite helpful for figuring out what's going on.
And also in Fibonacci, we're seeing the call stack.
Yes.
So we're seeing how deep we're gonna go, and if you click on the call stack, you see the value of num on every call.
Yeah.
So this is very similar to a debugger you'll find, let's say, in Chrome or.
Yeah,
If you're doing
in any
spec.
professional language or
Yeah.
yeah. So what the call stack means is first we called Fibonacci out here, and then that went to inside of that call, it's calling Fibonacci again. So you'll get more layers on the stack kind of the deeper you go. And if we were to up this number, you would see this call stack just kind of grow.
And you can actually do this kind of travel by disabling slow-mo and going step by step in the debugger.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few more advanced features. Yeah, put a breakpoint there. We're
Yeah.
still fighting those multiple red dots showing up
Mm-hmm.
on the left.
I think it's kind of helpful. But yeah, let's show. So has Richard talked about the debugger yet on stream?
We did a debugger talk, but we can
Okay.
definitely go deeper in Python. There's a question in the chat about whether it can show multiple variables, and yes, it can.
Yes.
But we only happen to have one. But
we can just add a fake variable.
Let's add a fake one.
Yeah. So one thing is your code is locked when you're in debug mode because the code is running, and you could in general you can't just edit and debug at the same time. But so if we exit debug mode, let's just put a bogus variable here. Equals 5 and foobar equals hello. And now if I go back into the debugger, click the little bug icon, and let's say I want to stop here. So I'm going to refresh, and okay, might have a little.
Try a different breakpoint. Try a show number. It's a beta.
Yeah. There's
Refresh.
still some little issues being fixed with the debugger, but the slow-mo worked. So if we go back into slow-mo, now it's going to go through this little loop again where we only have one variable in here. But here you can now see we've got all three of these variables, and then sometimes they show up null when they haven't been defined yet. So you can see as they're kind of being defined, they fill in here, which can be pretty handy. So one thing about the slow-mo is I believe you can pause, right? So
yeah, you can pause.
I paused just sort of where I wanted in the slow-mo, and then I let it go again, and then I'm going to let it walk through Fibonacci a little bit, and here I'll pause. And then you can see, I'm paused at this moment in the Fibonacci sequence, and the num is 3, bogus is 5, and hello is there.
And you have 3 buttons here,
Mm-hmm.
which are typical of debuggers.
Mm-hmm.
Step over means you just run this line of code, but you don't go in. Step in is the default mode in blocks. You basically are going to step into whatever call. So we're going to go and evaluate first this first fib, and then the second fib. And the third one is step out, where you want to kind of stop stopping in this current function and move up to whoever called this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we can do, let's step into that thing and see how this change. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can see
this change here.
See us going through. Yeah, and so I would say by default, most folks probably want to be doing step in, and then if you're in too deep, then you use step out, and if you want to skip something, you can do step over. So step out, I think, is going to skip basically everything because it's saying we don't want to be inside of Fibonacci anymore.
But this is a huge tool to learn, understand what your program is doing, because if you add enough variables, you will see precisely how the variables are being updated, where, when, and you can basically build this mental model on how the code execution works. So really, really important tool to understand and use when you're learning to code.
Yeah, and it's very useful when your program might not be very expressive, as in like if it's not showing on the screen all the time, like maybe on the screen you want to be doing, I don't know, showing the temperature or something, but you also have this other set of code running, and that code is not displaying to the screen anywhere. And so if there's an issue in that code, it can be hard to figure out what's going on. And so debugging lets you inspect the code, even if you're not showing it on the screen. And so that can be very powerful. Also, if you're like me and you've printed out strings and numbers to the screen many times to help figure out what the program is doing, it takes a long time to scroll those numbers and stuff across the screen. And here you can instantly see kind of what different variables are doing. And so just to kind of, prove a point we were talking about earlier, all of this that we just did switches over to JavaScript just fine. And so, you can work as long as you want in either language and then switch back and forth. And
As
even
long
in,
as you have as long as your project, Mr. Squiggle is happy, right?
yes,
So
yeah, if you have errors, you won't be able to switch. You have to fix the errors first. Because the problem is if you switch while you have errors, MakeCode doesn't quite know what you meant to say, and it might translate wrong, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
so if
so
we have an error and we try to switch, it's just going to
it's going to
complain.
say there's a problem. So yeah, fix the errors first. And so the undo function is going to be helpful there. Just hit undo until you've got no errors, or fix the errors, and then you can switch freely. So all of this actually works in blocks too. And this is I don't know if we've talked about return values on this stream yet.
We did a section on functions, so we've
Okay.
covered that, but we can talk about it.
Yeah. Just want to point out that so in previous versions of MakeCode Microbit, this wouldn't have translated nicely because there was just kind of no way to express a recursive function like Fibonacci in blocks, but now you can because of these return functions. So we'll hopefully see quite a few instances when the code you write in Python translates perfectly over to blocks. And same with JavaScript. And definitely especially in this beta period, like let us know if there's something you're trying to do that doesn't compile in blocks or doesn't switch back and forth between Python and something. We could really use your input and your help finding issues. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much yeah, the Python story. We've had for a long time JavaScript. Now we're bringing Python. It's going to be a Python flavored for MakeCode. That means not all programs that are written for MicroPython are going to run there. So
Mm-hmm.
make sure you watch for that. Also, the way you're going to write MakeCode Python is going to be vented. Um, you can do while true loops and
Mm-hmm.
poll sensors, but you also have access to events. So if you're thinking about handling a button press, you could do a while loop and poll the state of the button.
Yeah.
Um, but you also have an event which is way more efficient um,
Mm-hmm.
to implement. So
Yeah.
so that's gonna be very different. But you can write both ways if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In general, event code is plays nicer with other code, and it's kind of easy to have lots and lots of events going on and keep them separated, and it's a little harder to do when you have polling loops. Um,
And yeah. So did you talk about this syntax? This is Python
mm,
syntax, but probably not used a lot.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. So this is like Pelly was saying, um, not very commonly seen in Python, although it is technically part of Python. And I think in this case we could leave it out and everything would be fine. So you'll see sometimes when we're switching blocks or JavaScript programs over to Python, you might see more of this kind of syntax than you would write otherwise. And so what these are type hints, and they're saying like num must be
there you
num
go.
must be
Fixing.
a thanks
Yeah.
must be a number. Um, if
Yeah.
you didn't have this, then you have to just kind of infer from context what type this should be. But type hints let you just kind of be explicit, and they can help isolate a lot of types of problems. So they can be pretty
All
handy.
right. And we've got a question whether there's going to be features or function available in MakeCode Python that are not available in blocks. And the answer should be yes.
Yeah,
You're
and
always going to have more features in a uh, So I'll let you go on, but just like JavaScript, you're gonna be able to express more things in Python than blocks. For
Hmm.
example, I think switch statement currently construct.
Oh yeah, switch statement probably is one. Another one actually that we're seeing right now is
Go back to Python. We're in the Python show here.
yeah, it's just showing the
So yes, and I think this is perfectly fine. You have a more expressive language, and you will end up in situation where you're going to end up. And actually, that's a great question with these gray Python blocks. So maybe we can just show that. We
Mm,
haven't done that.
yeah, I wonder if we'll get one right. Actually, we probably won't get one right now. Let me think how we can get one.
And
Um,
there's a question about try catch as well.
try catch.
Let's try it.
I don't
We
remember if
support
it works, but let's try it.
we
So
support
let's,
exceptions in MakeCode, so why not?
yeah, let's do, so we'll try all that and then we'll catch. Oof, man, this is tricky. I don't remember the catch syntax in Python. Oh,
Yeah,
actually, to illustrate a point, which is that I don't remember what try catch looks like in Python, but I do remember what it looks like in JavaScript. And so, if this is you, if a construct in one language but not another, it's a perfect time to switch over to that language, try it out, and oops, shoot.
you want me to do it?
Yeah,
Might be easier.
sure.
Yeah.
Just because
Um,
my keyboard shortcuts aren't mapping over. So
Also, I am local, so
a little
all right,
easier.
let's
So we've got a try catch here, and then maybe let's throw something, like maybe in that first branch. Should we throw? Print
there's
isn't
no
going to work.
print, and we're gonna throw boo.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be happy. All right, let's see if that.
Here you can show.
Uh,
Yeah. Let's.
oh wait! It's not returning. It needs to return a number.
Yeah.
Mr. Squiggle, not happy. Gone. All right. There you go, Mr. Squiggle.
Yeah. Could be this is still an issue that we're working on.
Uh,
Oh, actually, it's going to tell us here, isn't it? It's going to say not implemented try statements.
there we go.
Yeah. Yeah, we still have a work item, but we expect this to work
This is a great
in the
comment.
coming weeks.
We'll file a bug on that. There
Hmm.
is runtime support for try catch.
Yeah.
So there's really no reason why we wouldn't support that. Let's try to get a Python gray block.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of something that would not translate well. The thing is, we keep making blocks more and more expressive, so there's fewer and fewer
Maybe a
things.
function call of sorts.
Um,
If I can get one here. No.
no,
No, we're too good.
functions work fine. Loops work fine. Uh,
Do we have a switch? Which might
uh,
be.
I don't know if Python. It's not very Pythonic, as they say, to
Right.
use switch statements.
Oh yeah, I know what we
Oh
can
wait,
do. We
some
can
math
do x
functions.
equals 0.
Yeah, bit shifting, sure.
Bogus. All
Uh,
right, so we're doing some kind of bit shifting operator that um, doesn't go in, and yeah, here we go. Python gray block.
yes. Right. So the code will translate as much as possible, and then the bits that it can translate, it'll just put as these gray blocks here. And you can pop back over to Python to see kind of what was going on. JavaScript, this would convert just fine to JavaScript because they both support this
Yeah,
is a bit shift operator.
there's a question about bogus. I think bogus is just slang for something wrong, something broken. I don't know where it comes from. Is it Latin?
I have no idea. It's just
Yeah.
a I don't know. Like foobar is often used as like just a nonsense name for something when you don't want to come up with a name, you use the name foobar.
Let's call it some number.
Yeah.
There we go. There's a question about list functions.
List functions. Oh,
Would
functions that return lists. Whoops, some number.
So if you're in the chat,
So yeah, we
Oh,
can make
mixed.
functions.
Yeah.
Uh,
Maybe
uh,
let's clear
list
that code.
functions.
And in
Sure.
general, if you have questions or feedback, yeah, feel free to use our forum.makecode.org, and otherwise we're also live on GitHub. Um, but yeah, definitely this is the time. So yeah, so there's a question about deep dives on lists. What do you have? Whoops, going
Oops.
on here?
I don't know. For I think I keep hitting the F
You
key.
shortcut. I thought it was me.
So for I in is it?
So can we?
Ye-
So we can the operations on lists. Can we push pop things?
Yeah, absolutely. Show number I. I think this will work.
So
My
you could do maybe x equals. Hold on.
too many
Yeah,
cooks.
we're. So this is your array, right? And you can do L push. We can push something on it. I can also pop.
And we support a lot of the slice syntax, and
Um,
I think
yeah.
so. List comprehensions aren't fully there yet, but that's something that we're working on. We find actually that we don't use list comprehensions a lot in microbit in programs, but
It didn't like my join.
what does join
Oh.
take? Does it take in another array? I forget. Oh, it takes in
Oh.
a
Oh,
string
it takes
separator.
a string.
Yeah,
All right. Like that.
yeah. How are
All
you
right.
able to type in the same control panel? This is Pelly's
Ah,
fancy
this is secret
software.
sauce. This is the secret sauce of the stream. We're here in Teams screen sharing. If you want
Yeah.
to know how the sauce is made, and we are remixing all that stuff using software called OBS. All right.
Yeah, Microsoft
Maybe we'll do
Teams.
a
Yeah, I think we
dedicated
should
stream
do.
of that.
I'd watch that. I kind of want to learn all Pelly's
All right.
magic video stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that will require some fancy gargles. Yeah, so we've got some of the list going on. Uh, not all of it, but feel free to kind of try it out and figure out what you need in Classroom. This is not going to be because we round trip to TypeScript. There is some things that are really hard to express. There is some very Pythonish thing that, and we also have limitation on this JavaScript side. We
Hmm.
don't do the prototype toolchain and things like that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and the limitations are really because of the hardware support, because we
Yeah.
can run on microbits. And in general, we run really efficiently on microbits. Like you can have fairly large programs go onto these things, and quite quickly as well. Um, this shows up, I guess, more in like the MakeCode arcade side of things.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah, I mean but the microbit will run out of memory for
mhm.
sure. If you're doing Python, what you'll see is
Oh yeah,
this icon here now on a new project. So that will give you a hint that you've written that in Python, and also there's a feature in new project. Daryl, you might want to
yeah.
go through that.
So when I make a new project, you can create it like normal, but we also have this little code options drop down. And by default, you can work in all languages, but you can also have the option to work in just one language. And actually, so on my screen, it's not showing me the contents of this drop down,
Oh,
so you might need to do that.
it must be some kind of native widget. It looks
Yeah.
rendered weirdly on mine. All right, Python only. Do you see it?
Yeah, so when you create a Python only project now, all that means is we took away the triple toggle, and so you're stuck in just Python. So that can be helpful if you just know you only want to be in Python. We actually don't really recommend this for most students learning. We think it can be pretty helpful to be able to switch between the languages to learn, but it's there.
Yeah, yeah,
Some
it's there.
folks have asked for it, so we've got it.
If you want some help, come here.
Yeah,
There's
that's right.
Python help.
Yeah,
Where did
and
JavaScript go?
so
Oh, we're
JavaScript
not
will show
showing.
up when you're in JavaScript.
All
Yes.
right, right,
So the
right,
help
right,
will
right.
be. So yeah, we have some basic documentation on a lot of the basics of JavaScript, or sorry, Python, and if there's other things you want to see, again, this is a great time to reach out to us. Let us know where gaps in documentation, things like that are. And if you hit that little arrow there, then you'd get kind of a full window instead of just this side window. But even this partial window here can be pretty useful. I don't know if it's being slow or maybe
No, I think
so.
it's compiling. It's the first time we open it, and
Yeah.
it it tends to require a C++ build. So
Oh yeah.
this may
this,
take a minute.
this will take a little while for us, but
Yeah, let's
won't
find it.
it won't take a little
Yeah,
while.
so we've also done a lot of work on the docs, and you should be able to see every snippet that is blocked. You could also see it in Python. In the editor, you can right-click on a function, for example, and you can. There's a help. Uh, so there's the immediate help, which is very handy. You just have to do nothing, just stick around. And if you right-click, you can click on the help, and that will load the help, which will take, which is still building right now. But yes, there we go.
Yes.
Uh,
And it shows, the JavaScript and Python versions and the blocks version. So you see all three versions right next to each other. And with some examples, you can, ooh, is this gonna work? Can I just, yeah, I can just run
yeah, you can
right
run
here.
it. You can also show the Python code.
Yes.
If I do this, and now you'll see.
Ah,
So all our docs our existing docs are also now available for Python, which is very helpful when trying to figure out what something is going on. So that's also very important to know. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good first shot at
yeah.
looking at what's coming up in the microbit. So there'll be a MakeCode Python. That's how we're gonna call it. Um, and it's very well integrated into the MakeCode
Yeah. Yeah. And
infrastructure.
and during this beta period, please let us know if you see anything, issues and stuff. And yeah, we'll get on those. One thing I wanted to show is, so I think Pelly already talked on stream about the GitHub integration. Just want to point out that the GitHub integration all works with Python as well.
You
Uh,
can create it. I'm signed in this browser. You can
okay,
go.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll create a Python GitHub project, and again, GitHub is this website and tool that professional developers use that can be very handy even for anyone kind of learning text programming or even blocks. Um, and it lets you keep a history of all the changes you've made and be deliberate about which changes you intended to make and which changes you didn't intend to make. So it can be very useful. So oftentimes, as a professional programmer, I'll write a bunch of code and then realize, oh, I don't want to do that way. Let me remove some of that. It's also the way most professional developers collaborate on code is with something called source control, which GitHub is just one kind of provider that can do source control.
So once
Uh,
you're attached to GitHub, you'll see that
mhm.
now there's a little arrow, and the arrow up means you've got changes in your browser that need to be saved in GitHub, and then arrow down means somebody else made changes to your project and you want to get it. And what you'll see a lot is these diffs. Eventually, you won't see the main TS. Just ignore that one. But you will see this way of looking at representing a change in your code. And red means lines that were deleted. If you have trouble with the colors, there's a minus here on the start of the line. And plus means added. And sometimes you'll see a mix of both because the line has been um, modified just within. Um,
Mhm.
when you look at those changes, you can revert them. You don't like them, or you can just say, I like this. I'm just going to push those, which really means saving to the cloud. And that's going to be the flow for your student. Make a change, test it, go to the GitHub view, review their change, commit. Once it's in GitHub, it's very safe. Like you will never
Mhm.
lose that thing again.
Mhm.
Um, so that's a benefit of this approach. But also, it's very, when you think about developing software today, collaboration is key, is very important. It's actually kind of part of the coding experience now to be able to deal with the source control system. So it's a great time to start, uh, and hopefully we made it super easy for your students to try it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a
Um,
lot of
mhm.
a lot of
So,
changes here and there to support Python in the system.
mhm. Indeed.
Hey, Daryl, I think we're done. We've been
All
rambling
right.
away for 50 minutes. This is great. Again, yeah, send us your questions and feedback, and we'll take a look. This was the MakeCode Python upcoming feature in the beta of MakeCode
Mhm.
Python.
Yeah.
All right.